the idea of dust and sweat and blood and failure. I've experienced all of it. But I think we live in a culture that sort of thrives on cynicism and criticism. Like we make criticism a sport, right? And we love to tear people down, and particularly leaders. And so it's risky to be in leadership. It's hard. It's filled with challenges. We're always sort of under pressure to navigate difficult times and change and come up with the right answers and have the vision and have the right words to say at the right time. And the beauty of this quote from Roosevelt is, it's okay to err as long as you get up again. Being in the game, being in the fight is what counts. And like you said, having an environment where it's okay to be innovative and maybe, you don't get it right the first time or the second time or the 10th time, but you keep going, you keep getting up, you keep trying. Yeah, I think this flies in the face of our social media culture, just the desire, the ease with which we can look at others and point out what's wrong, and thus sort of sit on the sidelines.
This is Leadership Sound Bites. Real leaders, real moments, real growth.
So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with a very special guest and also faculty at Catalysis, which is the community of healthcare organizations that are on their lean process improvement journey. And I blessed is probably the right word to be part of faculty and the work that's being done, because healthcare, as you can imagine, improvement is super important. So Al, along with being co-faculty executive coach at Catalysis on faculty, is also a certified executive coach with his own business going on that, as well as, we all have our side hustles or main hustle or whatever we want to call it.
Sure.
As well as being a former healthcare executive. So you sat in the seat of other CEOs. And so the advisor position probably comes relatively easy for you.
Well, I don't know about that, but I certainly have a lot of advice on what not to do.
Well, and that's freaking more valuable than what to do. But
Yeah, maybe so.
This didn't work for me. And I think that fits along with, you brought a quote, and so I'll let you kick it off. And I don't know that you have this quote memorized like some of them have, but I'll hand it over to you, sir, and welcome to the conversation.
Well, thanks, Michele. Really appreciate you having me on. I feel honored to be on. Yeah, this quote is from Teddy Roosevelt, a speech he delivered in 1910 in Paris, France, the year after he finished his term of office as president of the United States. And it's a familiar passage that I think many of us have heard, but it, to me, speaks deeply to the heart of and challenge of leadership. And it's the man in the arena quote. And so it goes like this. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So this is so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knew victory nor defeat.
Wow. I don't know, and no judgment, please, from people that are listening. I don't know that I've ever heard it in its entirety. And it struck me.
How so?
That it's super important that we embrace the meaning of that, and that I have leaders that I've experienced organizations that I've experienced to where it is 100% fear-based culture.
Mhm.
And when you have that, what you do for yourself and your people in the organization is you take away the very essence of that quote,
Mm.
people's ability to go forward and experiment and try and innovate
Mm.
and do all this stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're not going to be getting dirt on your face. You're not going to air. You're not going to go for this stuff. You're not going to even be in the frickin' arena.
Mhm.
You're going to put your head down and hope to God you don't get hit by the bullets that are being fired.
Mhm.
And I encourage people to create the space, even if it's carving it out in the part of the organization that you're in, to where people can feel the essence of that quote and step into it.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I think there's so much in this quote that speaks to me. The idea of dust and sweat and blood and failure. I've experienced all of it. Um, but I think we live in a culture that sort of thrives on cynicism and criticism. Like we make criticism a sport, right? And we love to tear people down, and particularly leaders.
Hmm.
And so it's risky to be in leadership. It's hard. It's filled with challenges. We're always sort of under pressure to navigate difficult times and change and come up with the right answers and have the vision and have the right words to say at the right time. And the beauty of this quote from Roosevelt is, it's okay to err as long as you get up again.
Hmm.
Being in the game, being in the fight is what counts. And like you said, having an environment where it's okay to be innovative and maybe, you don't get it right the first time or the second
Hmm.
time or the 10th time, but you keep going, you keep getting up, you keep trying. Um, yeah, I think this flies in the face of our social media culture, just the desire, the ease with which we can look at others and point out what's wrong,
Hmm.
and thus sort of sit on the sidelines. So,
It's interesting. Some people, or most people maybe, would consider it safer, if you will, safer, air
mhm,
quote, to do that. And I think one of the things that you risk is getting the end of your life on this planet in this body and leaving crap on the table.
mm,
I mean, to me, and it was at a point, I think I was 10 years old, we had moved to Japan. And so we went from very close knit family, grandparents, all the stuff. Everybody's involved in everybody's lives, cousins, the whole bit. And
mm,
my dad was in the military, in the Air Force, and a part of it to where there were only a certain, I didn't move around all the time like other Air Force brats, if you will.
okay, okay,
We went from McClellan Air Force Base in Sacramento to Yokota Air Base in Japan. And this was back in the 70s. And I got over there and I mean, uprooted everything. And in my childhood brain, it was like it was going to be radically different, right? Because we went through
mm,
all this change that clearly there had to be a reason it was. There weren't rickshaws on the street. There weren't, I mean, it was like there were cars, like there were cars in the US. There were humans, there were people, great people, by the way, awesome culture.
mm,
But to a 10-year-old with everything that I went through, I looked at it and thought, why did we do this? What's the whole point? There has to be more. And so I found myself through life doing that through whatever I'm in. It's like there must be more. I need to make a greater impact. Just trying to discover, what the purpose is in this. And I think the opposite of that quote, to where we created this curated reality on social media, or the narratives through the government about this fear-based, world that people could but created for a lot of people,
yeah,
hurts my heart,
yeah,
right? And so my purpose is, and I feel it, and I'm going to ask about leaders you work with, is to have people get unstuck from those shackles and those chains that they put themselves in with these unrealistic expectations, to where I have totally capable leaders sitting in front of me And they're like, I feel like I've got imposter syndrome. And I said, okay, so the flip side of that coin is it's just another way of saying fear.
Mm.
And if you're stepping into a role that challenges you, yes, it's going to be scary, as it should be.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't, you would be bored inside of 2 months.
Yeah.
But when we start flipping that to work and reframing so people can look at things differently and motivated and move forward, I watch people start shedding the things that are holding them back, the unrealistic expectations that we have to be perfect and all knowing, like Oz, the great Oz.
Mm.
You know, when you pull that curtain back, there's just a little guy with levers.
Yeah. 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 It's really true. I remember early in my career, um, I started my career as a pharmacist. So I practiced pharmacy, manager, director of pharmacy. And I had a mentor who was the chief operating officer of the health system at the time, who really took me under his wing and encouraged me, challenged me, believed in me. That was
Mhm.
huge. And I remember sitting in his office one day in the executive suite. I was so impressed, with it all.
Yeah. That you
And he
got
was,
invited in.
yeah,
Just
that
that
I
you
got
got
in.
invited in, you're like, I'm
Oh, yeah,
here.
the wood paneled walls and all that
Yeah.
stuff. It was pretty exciting. But I remember sitting with him. We were talking about some challenge, and he was trying to figure out sort of what the right thing was to do. And he asked me, "What do I think?" And I'm like, "What do I think?" He said, "Look, Al, this is leadership. There's no magic to it. You just sort of do your best. You figure it out as you go, and you put your best foot forward, and things tend to work themselves out." So he was just a very authentic, down to earth, sort of real person who believed in me, an up and comer who really had no business in the role. Um, but he saw something in me and put me in a position to excel and fail. And
Mhm.
yeah, and so I'll never forget that. He was a mentor over the course of my entire career.
I love that.
Yeah.
So did you find him or he found you? Because I hear it feels like he found you, but
Yeah, so I joined the organization and as a staff pharmacist, and he was the chief operating officer. So I
okay.
guess, yeah, so I didn't know him at all. He didn't know
No.
me. And then I became, 3 years in, I applied to become the director. We had lost the director, and it was he was the one who really gave me the opportunity. And I didn't have the credentials, I didn't have the background or the experience. And for some reason, he believed in me and thought they had been through rounds and rounds of interviews and hadn't found the right person. And so he gave me a chance. Of course, he did say, "Now, don't screw it up. Don't make me look bad."
No pressure. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So we found each other. He found me, really, and
Yeah.
he ended up recruiting me to another organization, and so I worked with him for a number of years. He's now retired, and somebody that I have always appreciated his sort of transparency, his down to earth approach.
Yeah.
He didn't hold himself up as smarter than everybody else. One of the things from Roosevelt's quote that I took away was, the leader in this case is not above people. It's not
Mm-mm.
above the crowd, but is
Mm-mm.
in the crowd. It's with the
Mhm.
people. And that's what I saw out of him. So he was a good example for me.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing when you talk about because I let people know, like when I was in leadership, it wasn't this. It was this.
Yeah.
So we're all on the same team. The
Yeah.
difference is we have different roles. That's the only difference.
Hmm.
But the perspectives and because it's like I have my perspective, which you and I can be seeing and experiencing the same thing, and your perspective is going to be different or similar. And if we don't let those perspectives in, we're making myopic decision making. I mean, very narrow views of stuff.
Yeah.
So you obviously had a really strong force in your life in terms of him as a mentor that
Mhm.
influenced, I'm going to say it and take the words out, but influenced greatly the leader that you were and became and still are, right? What do you do, Al, when you come up against leaders that didn't have that same opportunity or coming from a completely different space? Because I've had plenty of those in front of me because they're well-intentioned, misguided. Um, what do you do in that space?
You mean when you're working with a leader like
Well,
that,
you
or
could be working with a leader or coaching a leader
Mm,
that it's interesting because I've had leaders that because people always say, and it's true, you can't coach people who don't want to be coached. So for me, I've had leaders in front of me because they were in programs that they were literally in front of me because they were told they had to be because they were the senior leader over whatever and their people were going through it.
yeah,
And so for me, it's like, okay, great. It goes basically, if I'm being honest, I'm only here because I was told I had to be here. Okay, great. They have no goals. There's no goals because they're not there to improve or do anything else. And so for me, the question I'll ask is, so totally respect that. I want to make sure that you don't walk away going, this is 45 minutes I can never get back, right? Because that would suck. And so for me, it's like, think about an interaction that you had and you walked away and thought, that could have gone better. We all have those,
sure, sure.
which opens the door a lot of times.
Mm.
Okay. In fact, I haven't had it door, didn't open the door. But my question for you is, Al, what do you do? What do you do? What is your approach? How do you help those leaders? Because it's stressful being in a body that feels like you're the answer person and you've got to have it all and there is no other choice.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think everybody though has some internal drive, right? You know, something that motivates them. And I guess trying to come to understand what is it that gets them up every day and brings them to work or to the job or to whatever it is that they're about. I think it's a tough situation when you end up with somebody in front of you who doesn't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to really try to get to some internal driver within them that is apart from the reason they were mandated to be there in the first place. And so you can sort of get a foothold to talk about something that they care about, that they're interested in. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of where I would go with that. And just really, but I also do come across a lot of people who um, really don't know what they don't know.
Mhm.
And it's a tough situation when you lack self-awareness. And so trying to reflect back to them, the things that put them in that chair in front of you, trying to provide some data, some information through assessments. I think that helps. I think, a good 360 where people can feed back to them sort of
Mhm.
their habits, their how they show up. I think just getting awareness of self is sometimes the biggest challenge for leaders who are struggling.
Yeah, I joke around, but I'm serious when I tell people awareness is the first step in recovery.
Yeah, no
Uh,
doubt, no
yeah,
doubt.
yeah, we have to see it, know about it, become aware about it. And once we plant those seeds with people, then their subconscious starts scanning the environment for it.
Yeah.
Um, what advice would you give people that are, um, let's just say, didn't have the path that you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I was actually coaching with an up and coming leader yesterday, and he asked me, so how did you get to where you were? Tell me about your journey. And he says, I ask people that, and they say, well, I was just lucky I was in the right place or whatever. And I do think there's an element of, being in the right place at the right time sometimes really does help you. Um,
Hmm.
Opportunities present themselves, but you have to be ready to step into those opportunities. And I just always think about, for the individual who maybe didn't have that mentor that plucked him out and really sort of put him in a position that gave him the opportunity or her the opportunity to grow. I think you just have to be the absolute best version of yourself you can be. I think you have to become indispensable in many ways. You have to be excellent at everything you do. And that's the thing that I always try to do as a staff pharmacist, to just try to do everything with excellence, try to be the go-to person. When somebody called down from the floor, to the pharmacy, they would be the one that they want to talk to because you'll either have the answer or you'll figure out the answer and you'll follow through. Be the person who has great relationships, who communicates honestly, openly, transparently, who follows through. Just make yourself sort of that indispensable leader. And I think then when the opportunities show up, you might be surprised that you get an opportunity to fill the role or fill the opportunity or be considered. So
Yeah.
that was sort of my philosophy as I was coming up through the ranks.
Yeah. There's an element there. You talked about the what. What the other what is mindset while you're doing it, which is super freaking important,
Mhm.
right? Because you can do all the stuff that you were just
Yeah.
talking about. And you could do it from a victim mindset
Mm.
or this lack of, I'm not appreciated. I keep doing all this stuff. I do all this thing for everybody. I'm there for everybody. And no one ever recognizes me because I've heard that from people.
Mm.
And so the thing that I would add in this yes and, because all the stuff that you said is absolutely true. And is in the back of my mind as you're doing it, and do it and have joy in what you're doing.
Mm.
Be excited to come to work every day, right?
Yeah.
Look for the beauty in the things that are happening around you.
Yeah. And I think you have to do it for the right reasons. Doing all the right things so that as a means to an end, uh, that's not really what it's about. You have to
No.
just do the right things because of the right things, and because you want to be the best that you can be in the role that you're in, and you really want to flourish, and that inspires other people around you. It's not so that you get recognized. It's because of those things that you get recognized, but it's not the internal driver. It's not the motivator. Yeah, it is the what, but it's the how that also matters,
Mhm.
how you do it. And you do it because you care about the people around you. You have a heart to serve those that you're delivering care for or delivering services for, whatever the case may be. Sort of you have to have that internal drive to just be the best you can be, do the right
Mhm.
things, and then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Yeah, it is funny. And you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things that, and that you're absolutely right. And have aspirations
Mm.
to, have an idea that you want more.
Yeah,
Right? Because a
yeah,
lot of times people are in that space and they don't necessarily go, I want more. For example, had you not thrown your hat in the ring,
yeah,
the director role,
yeah.
how likely would the COO have noticed you?
We would not have, absolutely not.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? So it wasn't a luck thing. It was you being bold enough and courageous enough and saying, you know what, I do want more. And maybe I'm not qualified for this more. Maybe if there was a lead role or a supervisor role, that would make more sense because it's a pretty big leap from staff pharmacist to director, right?
yeah, yeah,
Which means somebody had to go, okay, Al, we know you don't have the skills and we're committed to developing and supporting you in this
yeah,
role.
yeah,
But you're the one that boldly went and said, you know what? I'm ready to take on more.
yeah.
And if this is the more that's in front of me, I'm throwing my hat in the ring.
Yeah, no doubt. You're right. I mean, as I was chatting with this fellow yesterday about career progression, I said it's okay to be ambitious.
Hmm.
It's okay to have a vision. It's okay to have drive. I think that, as long as it's married with sort of the right level of humility, if you think about what makes great leaders, they're humble, but they're also driven,
Hmm.
right? So they have that balance of sort of doing the right things in the right way and really sort of blooming where you're planted, but also always have an ambition, not just for themselves, but for the future, for a vision for their what they could do, where they can contribute. Back to the Roosevelt quote, it's like getting in the game, doing, trying, doing more. And yeah, you might fail. Maybe you're not quite ready. Maybe you're not qualified. But have a vision for your career, have a vision for your life, and go after it with everything you have. But along the way, just be the best version of yourself you can be, excel in your role that you're in, and lift up everyone around you as best you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm bobbleheading as you're talking because it's like, yeah, I mean, all that stuff is so freaking true. And the other thing, and it reminds me because I've had actually a number of coaching conversations where I've had clients that had doors open for them to a certain point, and then they had this expectation that the doors would continue to be open. And so they were kind of frustrated sitting in the space because they were ready for more, yet no one had opened the next door. And my question to them is, what conversations have you had with your one up? What? Literally a deer in the headlights kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, and what happens is these beliefs and these narratives that are in our head, like, well, if they haven't come to me, then maybe I'm not qualified. Maybe they don't want me. Maybe they're, whatever this stuff may be. It's like, go have the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what that looks like. And I said, I don't know what the position would be. I don't know. I said, you don't have to know. You can just go to them and say, I'm ready for more.
Yeah.
You plant the seed and let people
Yeah.
know you're ready for more, because the leader that you report to is sitting at tables that you don't sit at. They're having conversations that you're not part of. And when you plant that seed, then in the back of their mind, when something comes up, they're like, John was ready for more. Well, I bet John would be good at that, where John wasn't even a thought
Right.
until John had done that. And so part of it too is be bold. And it doesn't have to be that you know exactly where you're going to go, but if you know that you're ready for more, let someone know you're ready for more.
Yeah. No, I think that's really good advice for folks who are on the career path, on the journey. I know as a leader, as an executive leader, as I met with the folks that were on my team, there was always, three different prongs to the conversation. One was, how are you doing in your job? What's the results? Where's, accountability to outcomes, to fulfilling your duties. The second was where are you in your career? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I help you get there?
Mm-hmm.
And the third is, tell me about your family, your personal life, the things that you're struggling with, challenges at home, et cetera. Sort of trying to understand the whole person. And so if you're somebody that reports to a leader that doesn't have those conversations about career, well, then initiate them. Say, hey, I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to talk about my career. I tell you, I love what I'm doing. I'm so grateful for what I'm doing. How can I be better at it? And also, I want to continue to grow. How do I prepare myself? What do you need to see from me? Have those proactive, like you said, step out, like Roosevelt said, take a risk, get in the
Mm-hmm.
game, and you might fail. It's okay, but I think that's important.
Yeah, no, extremely important. Um, I had a question that floated through my head earlier and it just came back around again. Um, what is a thing, an incident, a whatever that like you look back on, you're like, that was one of my most like prouder moments.
Um, there's I guess a couple things that come to mind. One is, I was in a president role of a hospital, and we were hiring a, we had hired previously a director of pharmacy. So um, she was super talented. And then an opportunity came for a promotion to vice president, and we promoted her, and she excelled. She was brilliant, talented, way smarter, more talented than I ever was. Um, I left the organization, went to another organization, was president and chief operating officer for a health system in Michigan. And there was an opportunity for a hospital president role in our system, and went through a whole process. I said, I think I know somebody that could be really good. So I called her, she came out, she interviewed, she killed it, as I expected she would, and she got the role. I then ended up leaving that organization, coming back to Virginia. She moved into essentially a lot of the components of the role that I was in. And then she ultimately applied for and got the president role at the former organization in Virginia where I
Oh,
first encountered her. And it was just, for me, it was just a joy to see an individual who just flourish and
Mhm.
just continually grow, and grow from a director of pharmacy to hospital president of a large
Yeah.
flagship hospital. And just to see, I had a small part in that. She was super talented. But I did what I could to help clear the path and create an
Yeah.
environment for her to flourish. And now she's just, far surpassed anything I've ever done. And it's fun for me now to sit back and watch her journey and to see her grow. And I'm just really heartened by that.
Yeah. It's interesting, and it's one of the things I talk about to leaders is when don't keep people down. Be proud when they get promoted and they grow and they do all this stuff. And the
Yeah,
more people on your team that succeed in that way, it's like you're doing stuff right.
yeah, yeah,
It's like the proud mama moment. I have so many things that I look back at people that are on my team that went way beyond anything
yeah.
that I wanted to do. So for me, I didn't ever aspire to be in that C-suite role. My
Mhm.
aspirations were to support those leaders in those roles because they didn't have the support
Mm.
plentiful that would benefit them. Because there's, as you know, the higher up you go in the food chain or the org chart or however you want to call it, the fewer people that you have to talk to that you can be real with. And
Absolutely.
it will also hold the mirror up for you and call BS.
Yeah,
So that's the role that I aspire to be in, to be able to support those leaders that to go out and make really amazing decisions, engage and have those challenging conversations, to be able to look at them and go, you know what? Well done. Because we're humans and we need people to tell us when we did good.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't think to tell senior leaders, great job, and mean it.
yeah. Yeah, because a lot of times when you're in that senior leadership position, people tell you what they think you want to hear.
Bingo.
And you also said something that's critically important, is that the higher you go in leadership responsibility or role, really the lonelier it gets. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're a CEO sitting in the CEO chair, it can be extraordinarily isolating.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's looking at you to have the answers, to set the vision, to do all the right things. You have so much to manage, so many stakeholders, so many people pulling at you. Back to the Roosevelt quote, so many people criticizing you, so many people sort of looking at you and pointing out your flaws. So having people like you who can come alongside, what I hope to be able to do as well in this next chapter of my career, to come alongside leaders, successful leaders, and support them in managing the many, many challenges, decisions, difficulties, change management things, et cetera, that they face, and be that sounding board, that support system, that person that they can be honest with and can reflect back to them. Um, you know, you have to have feedback loops as a leader. You have to have people that are going to be honest with you, tell you really what's what, how you're doing, not always tell you you did a great job, but to, yes, encourage you, give you good feedback, but also sometimes tell you, yeah, maybe you could have done that differently or this differently, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera. So yeah, the role that you're in, the role that I am now in as an executive coach is critical
Mm-hmm.
for the success of leaders. I think we all need support.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, and the other thing I'll add that's extremely important is to be able to hold the confidence of
Yeah,
a leader that says, I don't know what to do.
yeah.
And I've had those, it's like, Michelle, I've got to deliver news that it's like I can't see a path forward. And to be able to have that conversation as a coach to go, okay, let's reframe your thinking. What
Mm,
assumptions are you making right now?
yeah.
Right? What is the other path? And to watch that shift in energy when there starts to be a parting in the, the clouds, the darkness, whatever it may be, to where people see a light again and a path forward. Because a lot of times, if we're just stuck to our own thinking, we don't necessarily challenge what it is.
Mm. No, it's very, I mean, it's very well said. I think being able to be vulnerable when you don't know exactly what to do is very important. And having a place, a space where you can do that. And it can't always be, your support at home, right? You have to sometimes, can't always bring all that stuff home. You have to have a professional confidant or coach or somebody that you can really sort of let your hair down with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I freaking appreciate this time with you, sir. I'm so glad that we got connected through Catalysis, because in
Yeah.
Catalysis faculty are doing their own thing.
Right.
So we don't necessarily get together. So I think you recommended, somebody did, but Carlos brought, and the team brought everyone together. And so it's just cool to be in the room, to be able to connect with people that are doing similar work and maybe had different paths to get to the work that we're doing today.
Yeah.
What one or two things as we wrap up the freaking 200th episode, by the way, which is just mind-boggling.
Wow.
Mind-boggling.
I'm honored to be on number 200.
Yeah,
You go,
mind-boggling.
Michele.
Yeah, the bicentennial. But what one or two things, Alan, all the stuff that we've talked about, and by the way, the door's open for you to come back again. Please, I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure we're just a tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
What one or two things do you want people to walk away with around this conversation?
Yeah, I think just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to get out of your comfort zone. I think if I look back on my executive healthcare career and I think about the things that I did that made me uncomfortable, I'm an introvert. I'm good being by myself. I'm good in my office, reading, writing, emailing, but getting out on the floor, meeting with frontline staff, holding town halls, having lunches and breakfasts with people, you know, doing those types of things. For me, that was uncomfortable, but some of the most rewarding times I ever had in leadership. And so, it makes me nervous. It made me nervous. But if you're too comfortable, I think you said this early on, if you're too comfortable, then maybe there's something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If we can challenge ourselves to get outside of our comfort zone and to really push ourselves to grow, yeah, we might fail, we might make a mistake, but we also might really find that there's more within us than we thought. And that's when the real joy of leadership, the rewards of effort come to the fore, and there's just nothing that can replace that. So, yeah, that's my thoughts at the end here.
Yeah, the hashtag for me is that the phrase that I've had for a few decades now is face your fears
Yeah,
and do it
yeah,
anyway.
yeah, absolutely.
Face your fears and do it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the time. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Michele and Al. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Have a freaking awesome